to this week's Multifamily Investor Nation webinar. Again, my name is Whitney Elkins-Hutten. I'm the Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com. And this week, we're going to be talking about how to use learning objectives in order to amplify your education, amplify your, how you use education for marketing, but most importantly, educate your investors and help convert them into your funnel. So I've got a slideshow all set up here for you guys. Let me get to that. Awesome. So if you are not familiar with me, and this is the whole reason why I invest in real estate, me and my crazy crew here, our annual pilgrimage to Sedona, Arizona. It's amazing down here. We've been having some amazing weather. This was us here last year. But anyways, this is why I invest in real estate, is to, experience the 5 freedoms in life: financial freedom, time freedom, choice freedom, freedom of location, and then freedom to create an impact in the world. But it wasn't always like that. I started off real estate investing in 2002, living, flipping, and house hacking, eventually transitioned into buy and hold rental real estate, and then scaled up into multifamily assets and private equity. And we've personally, my husband and I have built an amazing portfolio that supports our day-to-day financial needs, allows us to do all this amazing traveling and provide for our family. And we can help you do that here at PassiveInvesting.com. Here's just a handful of our amazing stats here as we round out 2023, going into 2024. We're actually now have lent about $250 million in our rehab wallet loans. We have 1.4 billion assets under management. We've gone full cycle in 8 deals, and then have made over $51 million in investor distribution. But how did we do that? Part of that is, how we have built out our amazing marketing function. And part of that marketing function is education. And so I want to just kind of recap our past conversation, which is education versus marketing, what it is, and then how can we deep dive a little bit deeper into an education. Because a lot of feedback I got from our last talk is like, people are like, oh, I educate throughout, all my marketing, branding, emails. And I'm like, I actually challenge them that actually is not education. That is strictly marketing and branding. You are providing value, no doubt about it there, but education is a much different function. Education sits in between demonstrating, your brand, creating that awareness, that conversion into the funnel, and the closing of that investor into deal, which is what the responsibility of the investor relations team is. Okay, education is that function that happens right there, grabbing that investor where they're at and giving them, meeting them where they're at and giving them as much knowledge as possible so they can make an educated decision. Now, here's the thing. When you're talking about investor education, it is very different from marketing, because that investor can take anything that you've just said, and it applies to them being able to invest in other places. Okay, it's not just directly tied to your business. Now, here's the thing. When you build out your learning objectives, when you build out your investor education program, of course, you should make it tied to the business goals, okay? Because not only are you meeting with the investor where they're at, you're taking them on a journey. You're filling in those knowledge gaps, building them towards a competency. But that completion of those knowledge gaps, getting them moved into action, okay, actually should be tied directly to a business goal. Okay, we are in the process, here at PassiveInvesting.com, of finalizing our wildly important goals or key performance indicators for 2024. And part of those key performance indicators, like most of you operators out there, are how many deals you're going to close, and how much funding, how large are those deals going to be, how much funding do you need to raise to go into those deals. Okay, so your education component, along with your marketing, need to be tied to those business goals, of course. Now, how do we do that? We mentioned in that last slide, Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, this is getting into education, more education theory, instructional design theory. But let me just give you like a little snapshot of what I mean by Bloom's taxonomy, because if we understand how an education program needs to work, what that journey actually is with an investor, then it's going to be much easier for you to sketch out some materials to fill in those gaps. So to really strip this all down, okay, is that you're learning to match, step, and lead with the investor, okay? So when that investor comes in, they need to be able to recall specific facts, meaning they have to remember where they saw that information, okay? And then they have to, and even what that information is. So let's say you're a multifamily investor and you switch markets, okay? That investor now needs to remember that you're no longer just investing in Houston, Texas. Now you're investing in Dallas, Texas, okay? They need to understand why they should be concerned about Dallas, Texas. So they need to understand or grasp the meaning of whatever you're trying to tell them. And then they need to be able to, again, move up the hierarchy, be able to take that information you gave that, apply that to looking at information that a deal that you're giving them, be able to analyze that information, and then eventually the top two steps, which are evaluating and creating, be able to make a decision based on the information. Now, think of this if we kind of equate it back to our college courses, remembering and understanding are kind of like the 101, the intro courses, all right? So when you're building out education, we're going to talk about that when we break down our learning objectives, how this all works. The remembering and understanding is your 101 level, okay? 201 level is going to be your applying and analyzing, and then your 301 level is going to be your evaluating, where that person's actually executing on your deal. Now, think about this. You have probably held hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of investor calls and spoken to hundreds of investors, maybe even thousands of investors. And I bet your investors could fall in one of three camps. They're either new to passive investing or multifamily investing, meaning they follow their education where you need a match, step, lead with them is that 101 level. Or they are new to you, okay, meaning they understand passive investing and multifamily investing, but they're new to you. So now that education that you're going to be tailoring to that investor is the 201 level. Or they are a repeat investor and you just need to kind of, be able to shift, maybe give them a new market, give them a new asset structure, something like that. So that now that's that 301 education, or maybe it's somebody that you've moved all the way through the journey and they're just waiting for a deal to go into. That's going to be the 301 education. All right. But here is the crux. This is why it's so important for, if you're going to have an education arm, and this is really where the rubber meets the road of the differentiation between education and marketing, is that what I see a lot of operators doing is they get a new investor and they say, hey, do you want to invest? Right? And so you remember, whenever you meet an investor, you got to match, take them one step forward, and then you can lead them. Okay. It's kind of like, so I guess the failure is that, you get a new investor on the phone who has no idea what a multifamily syndication means, because they've only invested in the stock market, and all of a sudden you put a deal in front of them and you expect them to invest. There's a gap there. You did not take them through that investor journey or that taxonomy of skills that they need in order to be able to make a decision. All right. So when you go down to break down learning objectives, okay, and each one of these, like the 101 level, 201 level, 301 level, let's understand what our goals are at this level, what questions your content that you create need to be answering, and some examples of what kind of content you can create in this area. Well, all right, repetition is the mother of all skills, guys. 101 objectives, okay, goals. The goals at this level purely are getting that investor to remember and understand who you are, what the value you provide, which is marketing, okay, but also remembering all those different terms, the asset classes you do, the strategy you take, okay, just remember and understand. Remember, they don't know how to evaluate. They can't make a decision off that information yet, but they just need to know you're the person to go to. So what questions is this type of content going to answer? In this type of content, you're answering 2 questions only. What it is that you're talking about, and why is it important that they embody that? Why is it important that they understand? Okay, you're not telling them how to do it, where to find it, how to take action on it. Okay, what it is, why it's important. Now, some examples of content that you can create is like, like a definition library. Okay, you can define a concept in a blog post. You can do like little 7-minute videos or maybe 3-minute videos. Create a video library of like, quick snippet of definitions. And this little library allows you to link out those definitions in some of your 201 and 301 content. Okay, because, I don't know if you've ever read a book and all of a sudden you're just like, ooh, I don't know what that word is. I had to go look it up, right? You're creating that definition, you're creating that dictionary. Okay, this type of content also you can help people connect dots, right? Show them where they have translatable skills. I do this all the time between multifamily and express car washes. If somebody's familiar with net operating income at the multifamily level, I can get them to understand very readily, what EGI is, when we start talking about car washes, right? I take a terminology that they're already familiar with and I help demystify the translatable terminology in the asset class that I want them to now understand. Connect the dots for them. Compare, contrast, right? This is another way of connecting dots, but this is, sometimes I'll hop on a phone with an investor and they say, I have no background in real estate. And so this feels really scary to me to be able to invest in a multifamily, property. And I'm like, well, great. Do you own your own house? Yeah. Well, fantastic. You already understand so many things about lending and property and stuff like that. Let me show you how these things connect into the multifamily world. Okay. This also makes you as the operator very relatable. Okay. This is really what we're doing. We're trying to relate to somebody and getting them to remember and understand something. All right. Learning objective number 2, okay, getting them to that 201 level, okay. The skills here, the goals here is we want them to be able to take a concept, apply it, and analyze it. All right. Now, the questions here is, to get everybody on the same page, you're still going to want to do a brief, like little what it is we're talking about, why it's important that you embody this concept or understand it. But now we're going to show them how to do it step by step. So these are going to be your content that are how-to blogs or how-to videos. These are going to be case studies. You're going to take it one step further and show examples on how that particular how-to plays out in their world. Okay, when you do that, they move beyond remembering and understanding, and now they get to be able to apply that information that you gave to them and analyze it. And then we get to our 301 level. This is where we want to have all of our investors, because if they're at this 301 level, they are going to be really ready to invest with you. Okay. What are we having them do here? The skills that we want them to have here are evaluating and creating. Okay. Most limited partner investors are not looking to create a limited partner investment, but maybe create their own and design their own portfolio. So this is still a very valuable skill for them to understand. But the questions here, we're going to, again, tap into what it is, why it's important, how to do it. But now we need them to implement. So we need them to be able to see it, do it, and then be comfortable enough to teach it back. Maybe teach it to a spouse, teach it back to you. Or if you have like a nice workshop, that you're doing, maybe they can teach it, teach to each other. So what does this look like? What are some examples of situations we can put the investor in? We can have them do teach backs to you. We can have them teach somebody else. Now that's really hard, and probably, conceptually you're trying to figure out, wow, when am I going to have them teach that back to me? Well, if you're doing, say, like talking at a meetup or something like that, you could have them say, hey, does anybody have an example of XYZ deal in your portfolio? Does this fit what I just, how does what I just showed you apply to that asset in your portfolio. Okay. Now you get to open up the door and have them teach back some of that information. It helps them assimilate the information that you just showed them. Another thing that you can do is have them design a tool. This is one of my favorite ways to get to that 301 level, is have them in real time along with you design tools that are going to help expand their vetting process, or understand their goals or their risks, their timeline. They are going to design these tools along with you. So they're going to design a process, they're going to design like a vetting sheet or something like that. And that's how we can get these people, these investors, not only to the applying the analyzing stage, but nudge them up one further to where they are armed with the skill to where they can now go safely evaluate a deal. All right. So that's a lot of information we just covered. I just took like a whole year of instructional design and stripped it down into like 3 slides for you guys. But the last concept here is make sure that you are constantly taking that investor to the next level. And don't assume that just because you've moved that investor through 3 levels of content that they're going to stay there. Okay. Education is much like a spiral. Okay. People are going to they're going to continue to go around, learn a concept, and they're going to hit a sticking point, and it's going to feel like they have to relearn everything again. They're going to hit another sticking point. Okay. You continually want to move that investor through all those sticking points until they get to the middle, which is where they truly have arrived at that 301 level, ready to invest with you. So what does this mean? Is that you have to overcome 2 things. One, the sticking points, but 2, the forgetting curve. Okay. I'd almost call it these days, with so much content, free content out there, a ton of groups that are all teaching different methodologies, investor groups, like I could name some groups, but anyways, everybody's saying my way is the best, my way is the best. And so sometimes the investor is just completely confused. And if a confused mind doesn't buy, a confused mind won't invest with you. So we have to continually check in with that investor and overcome that obstacle curve and overcome that forgetting curve. And here's a few little ways to do that. One, at the end of any piece of content, ask the question, what was most useful for you? Okay, again, you're tapping into that analyzing, the high analytical skills, possibly into evaluation. Okay, you're having them actually assimilate the information immediately right there and teach it back to you a little bit. All right, so that's a very powerful tool. At the end of every single webinar, every single blog post, you should have some sort of call to action. Let me know what was most useful for you here. Even if they never reply or they never speak up, they're going to think about and answer that question in the head, because we don't like leaving blanks. Humans hate blanks. They love to fill in blanks. Okay. Continue to offer a multitude of touch points on the same topic in a very short, specific period of time. So think about your education content much like you would a marketing campaign. End of the year, I've seen a lot of people do education around depreciation. Maybe the initial blog post in December is about what is depreciation, and then you have like a webinar where you bring a cost segregation expert on to talk about bonus depreciation, and then maybe you hold a larger boot camp skills session around how does depreciation leverage out in your portfolio. So again, in a very compressed period of time, you're moving that investor from remembering and understanding to applying and analyzing and then evaluating. Okay, that is very, again, you're continuing to bust through that forgetting curve and that obstacle curve. And then don't forget to repeat classes. Just because you did it one time doesn't mean you can't do it like 6 months, 8 months later, or even a year later. Okay, continue to take your content, recycle, and level it up yourself. All right, guys, that is what I have for today. If you have any questions, go over to the Q&A box. I'd love to handle your questions. And this is also your invitation to action. You can join us here at the Passive Investing Club. You can join us with passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com. That is a specific landing page on the passiveinvesting.com website. There you get free one-on-one calls with me to discuss your goals, free access to our passive investing made simple masterclass and boot camps, and priority access to our open deals.